Hey Comicstorians, I'm Sal.
I'm Ben.
I'm Tiffany.
We're from ComicPOP. It's a channel all about comics, but you know that already because you watch The Weekly Pull, which is a podcast that features myself, Benny, and Rob from Comics Explained. And today we're going to give you a little sample of this channel by giving you a rundown of some of the top deaths of Spider-Man. That's right, we're going to talk about the times that Peter Parker Spider-Man has died. And we're going to talk about real deaths here, people. We're not talking about whether he was missing or alternate realities, although I will say Ultimate Spider-Man handled not only the best death of Spider-Man, but the best death in comics ever. So, it's a bold statement, I'm putting it out there. But let's talk about some of these deaths that have taken place. Honorable mention, first off, goes out to Kraven's Last Hunt, which we covered on Back-Issues along with Benny, in which Kraven the Hunter shoots and then buries Spider-Man. Although he shot him with a tranquilizer and he was buried alive, he could have easily killed him. And he was effectively dead for 2 weeks while he was gone.
And yet not dead.
Not dead, which is why it's an honorable mention. He doesn't actually dead in that issue. This next one's kind of an oddball. It's from Uncanny X-Men number 191, in which Spider-Man is crucified by a Conan villain named Clone Saga. That's right, Marvel used to publish Conan comics back in the day, and Chris Claremont wrote this one issue in which the mutants are under attack by this Conan villain named Clone Saga. And Spider-Man winds up on the front lines, and for his troubles he is crucified and tortured. The death is of course undone by fellow X-Man Magic and magicianal counterpart Dr. Stephen Strange. The two of them wind up happening upon Spider-Man and then reverse time so that he never got crucified and beaten and tortured and killed.
So he's crucified and then resurrected.
Yeah.
Huh.
Interesting. Good point.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, so he's a messianic figure.
But the Conan villain's still attacked.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, the Uncanny X-Men were all like, hey, remember that time?
That you died horribly?
Well, I was gonna say, remember that time that Conan villain showed up?
Yeah.
That was weird.
That was very weird. Hey, remember that time that Conan villain invaded? Yeah. That took place in Atlantis Attack. The next one I got is Infinity Gauntlet number 4, in which Thanos, of course, obtains all the Infinity Gems and assembles them into a gauntlet, which he wields and kills half the universe. Spider-Man does not die in the halving of the universe. Instead, Spider-Man's on the front lines along with several other prominent superheroes to try and upseat Thanos from his, reign. And for his trouble, Spider-Man is actually bludgeoned to death with a rock by a creepy sex counterpart of Thanos that he creates when he's jolted by death. You see, Thanos is trying to win the affections of death, and at one point or another he gets so sick of death not being interested that using his infinite power, he creates a female version of Thanos named Taraxia, and she, of course, worships and adores him.
Right.
And then I guess she's also as powerful as Thanos pre-Gauntlet, because she overwhelms Spider-Man and then beats him to death with, like, a rock. And you're like, what? But then when Adam Warlock undoes everything, Spider-Man's resurrected in that one as well.
I hope it was quick.
It looked quick. It certainly took place very quickly. It was, I think, one panel. Like, she gets him off the web line and then just wham! And all you see is like a rock with blood on it. The next one's a little bit less grandiose. This one we also covered on Back-Issue. It's Spider-Man number 17, which took place either before or after Infinity Gauntlet, depending on who you read.
Right.
In this one, Spider-Man tries to save a mother and her daughter from a Freon explosion and gets exposed to this Freon leak, and then his heart stops and he dies. And he goes to like a weird superhero kind of afterlife where he is forced to look upon his past and then, I guess, get over it. But instead, he winds up fighting Thanos and death itself to save the soul of a little girl who also was caught in the crossfire.
Oh.
So,
that was a really nice one.
it was a good one, yeah. Yeah.
Thanos is involved in at least 2 deaths.
In at least 2 deaths.
So
yeah, no
far.
fewer. Yeah. Okay, this next one comes from the Web of Death storyline, which was pretty much in the same window of the Clone Saga during the 90s.
Oh.
Sounds like a fitting title.
Yeah. Because Spider-Man winds up getting poisoned by Daredevil villain the Owl, and then he dies from it.
An animal known for using its poison.
That's true. Yeah, not really.
Well, maybe it's just that he's so wise.
Yes, that he's able to...
the one way!
Yes, I figured it out.
That said, Spider-Man expires from the poison, but Dr. Octopus winds up creating an antidote and reviving him.
You can't kill him, I have to kill him!
It's a really sweet issue. You'd think it would be something like that, and today it would be more like that, but back then it was more like, well fought, old foe. Like, no. Like, there's this kind of admiration and respect for Spider-Man.
Oh.
He was then promptly murdered for his troubles afterwards.
Was he also poisoned?
No, his neck was cracked by Kane, the spider clone.
And then all the arms like started flailing around.
I think they all went limp, and you're like, oh.
Oh, that's sad.
Clank!
Don't worry, he was replaced by an utterly forgettable female Dr. Octopus.
Oh.
This next one is Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man number 71, in which the Clone Saga is going full-blown loony. Spider-Man, the one that we've been reading since, like, 1976, as it turns out, has actually been a clone the entire time, and this new upstart Ben Reilly has been proven to be the genuine article. As such, Marvel is basically just doing some kind of continuity gymnastics to try and give us a young, hip, unmarried Spider-Man, while also not killing off Spider-Man by killing him off, effectively. What they do is, they imply that because Peter Parker is, in fact, a clone, he is shutting down. His body is degenerating from years of wear and tear, and because the process isn't a perfect process. So he winds up losing his powers and then just expiring in the hospital from clone degeneration. But instead of degenerating, he flatlines and then is resuscitated, after which his powers return, and then he becomes the one true Spider-Man. They were kind of pushing things towards getting rid of Peter Parker, and the closer that they got to pushing him off the stage entirely, the harder the pushback came from the fan community, and the more they had to double back and completely do a 180 on this whole
I'm gonna
thing.
do it.
Yeah,
we're
gonna kill him. He's gonna degenerate. He already lost his powers, and then it's hilarious how he loses his powers, and then he dies. And then not only does he not die, but his powers come back. Oh, and also, he's the real one, and the other guy's the clone. Sorry, everybody.
It's a huge switcheroo!
Yeah, it's always been meant to be that way, except totally not. This next one comes from a storyline called The Other, from Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 3, in which it turns out Spider-Man's powers are not science fiction-based, but are in fact magic-based, and are granted or bestowed by the Spider God. Spider-Man refuses to accept his spiderness, and as such, his body is starting to shut down because he's becoming something else. Energy vampire Morlun appears and then promptly beats him near death, and then goes after Mary Jane. Peter Parker revives long enough to transform into a Spider-Man, but not Spider-Man kind of thing, but a monster.
A man-spider.
A man-spider, if you will. He kills Morlun and then dies from his wounds. So, literally, just dies. And then his body becomes many spiders. But,
and then Kraven eats a room full of them.
if only.
He shows up.
Kraven shows up. He had already been dead at that point, but he'd be like, "Hey, I need those in order to prove that I'm superior."
Spider-Man.
Yeah. This next one comes from Amazing Spider-Man number 700, the Superior Spider-Man arc, in which the frail and dying Dr. Octopus winds up switching minds with Peter Parker. They switch bodies, and then the Doc Ock body dies with Peter Parker's mind in it. But then, in Superior Spider-Man number 9, it turns out Peter Parker's consciousness was hiding in the back of his own mind. And so Doc Ock has to do battle with Peter Parker in the Mindscape, wherein Doc Ock beats and kills Peter Parker.
Oh!
So he dies. Double death! Same story arc. 2 deaths.
Oh, this is mine now!
Yeah, and they have this epic fight. It's really cool, and then Peter Parker is expunged from his own mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised they went that far to be like, no, his mind left and went into Doc Ock's body. But it's still there.
Yeah, but a little piece of it.
There are two of them.
Yeah, and then there's a third one. This final death, at least for me anyway, is in Spider-Man Deadpool number 4. It's a really fun team-up book where Spider-Man and Deadpool hang out and team up. Of course, the hilarity ensues when Spider-Man, of course, hates Deadpool, and Deadpool admires and reveres Spider-Man.
I was going to ask how that worked.
Yeah, well, it works in as much as The Odd Couple works. It's a lot of there's a lot of personality clashing. It's actually a fantastic series. It's written by the I
Colin Bunn?
No, I Kill Giants.
Oh, Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly.
Ah.
With art by Ed McGuinness. It's a fantastic series. It's still going on, and I recommend it. It's, for me, the #1 best Spider-Man book coming out right now. But anyway, at this point in Peter Parker's history, he's the chairperson and CEO of his own company, Parker Industries.
Right.
And Deadpool, of course, is still like a mercenary and an assassin for hire. And he is hired by someone to murder the CEO of Parker Industries. So what happens is Deadpool shows up at Peter Parker's place and then shoots him in the head, and he dies.
But then they team up?
I mean, they had been teaming up.
Oh.
Deadpool didn't know that Spider-Man was Peter Parker.
Oh.
That's why he was.
But then they stopped teaming up?
No,
'Cause
they
he's
still
dead.
no. Well, he was resurrected, of course. Those are the most recent for me. No. Anyway, those are for me the most prominent or memorable or in continuity deaths of the One True Spider-Man, Peter Parker. If you are to check any of these out, of course, we did a whole bunch of episodes of our flagship show Back Issues about a couple of these seminal chapters in Spider-Man's life. If you want to check them out, you can go to ComicPOP to see how those all turned out, because we give you a whole rundown of the story in question. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and watching this episode, and get well soon, Benny, and we'll see you guys next time on Comicstorian and hopefully on ComicPOP as well. I'm Sal.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Tiffany.
Thanks a lot for watching.